Greetings in the name of Jesus Christ and welcome to our Bible Prophecy Update. I am Marco Kiroglu. This week I have a lot to share with you on a very important subject. This subject matter is so important that none of us can walk from it without being affected by it. All of us are affected. Directly, not even indirectly, directly, all of us are affected by it. The way we live our lives, the way we relate to other people, even the way we conduct our businesses are affected by this subject matter. Furthermore, this subject matter is setting the stage for the arrival of the Antichrist. This subject matter is perfectly fitting into one of the most important Bible prophecy passages in the book of Revelation. Before I spill the beans any further, let me ask you a question. What will be your answer to this question? What was the most important change or most important impact the coronavirus crisis brought about for the whole world? What was it? Was it the number of people that died? Was it the financial fallout and the collapse of many businesses? Or was it something else? Well, as far as I can see, the biggest impact coronavirus crisis brought about for the world is a global digital takeover. In the silence of the lockdown, under the blanket of the coronavirus pandemic lockdown, the world is taken over by a digital domain. The world is now under a digital dominion. No matter where you live, no matter in what part of the world you are in what country you live, almost all people on earth are now under the domain of a digital governance. Now this has taken place right there in the lockdown period. Let's just go back a little bit. In 1980s and 90s, internet started growing. First the businesses, then some rich people, and then eventually ordinary people started using internet. I remember in late 1990s, early 2000, we started having our first email accounts, sending emails, and then cell phones came. Then we started using cell phone. Eventually cell phones also were able to connect to internet, and suddenly we realized our cell phones are like supercomputers in our pocket. We were all excited about all these technological developments, and we were eager to give more and more of our lives and our freedom to the internet so that we can benefit from the internet, from the technology. Before we realized, our cell phones were equipped with all high technology such as good cameras and sound recording capacities and etc. And eventually, just before the 2020, let's go back to 2019, we were already very much under the influence of internet across our lives, across different compartments of our lives to a very large extent. Internet was more and more becoming invasive for our personal lives and for our businesses. Internet was becoming more and more part and parcel of how governments were ruling their countries. But then there came the lockdown. In the lockdown, something unprecedented happened, and it happened right in front of the eyes of the whole world. In fact, the whole world took part in it, but very few people realized what was happening. I believe it was all planned. First of all, I believe it is all according to Bible prophecy, and I believe this recent development is putting us into a new stage in Bible prophecy. Post-COVID-19 world is a world that is fit, that is prepared, that is ready to receive the Antichrist. But let me just explain how did I reach this point. If you look at Revelation chapter 13 verses 16 and 17, there you read that this beast, it will make everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their forehead or on their right hand or on their forehead, so that they can buy or sell. Unless they receive the mark of the beast or the number of the mark of the beast, they won't be able to buy or sell. In other words, every transaction, every business deal will be subjected to the approval of the system that require for the seller and the buyer to have the mark of the beast. You see, for this system for such a system to take place, for such a system to establish, a couple of things need to happen first. First, the current economy has to be destroyed. It has to be eradicated. The current economy, which is based on cash transactions, need to be eradicated. That's one of the prerequisites. Then in the place of the current cash-based economy, there must be another economy in which the system will be able to either okay or reject the transaction. Let me give you an example. A couple of years back, I was doing a transaction, and in the process I had to make a payment to purchase the good. But first I need to make the payment, and then the payment needs to show up on the bank account of the seller. Until the seller receives the money into his bank account, I was not allowed to walk away with the good. Although I made the payment, I had to wait for a while. Only after a couple of days of waiting, the seller said, all right, we received the money you paid, now we're gonna give you the good you have purchased. Now that made me think, and that is exactly what I'm talking about. In a normal traditional buying and selling practice, there is only two parties, the buyer and the seller. The buyer extends the cash out and the seller take the cash and give the good, and that's finished and clear. It's finished and all done and dusted. But in the system which Antichrist is going to use, there must be three parties: the buyer, the seller, and the party in between the two that will confirm or reject the transaction. In this system, as we see in Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 to 17, Antichrist is going to use a system that will either reject the transaction if either the seller or the buyer doesn't have the mark of the beast, or if both of them have the mark of the beast, and if both of them are in good standing with the Antichrist, then the transaction will go through smoothly. Now, for that to take place, for such a system to be established, the current cash-based trading system must be eradicated. The second thing, that was the first thing. The second thing the Antichrist needs is everyone on earth needs to be in a database upon which Antichrist has ultimate authority. Now, remember, there are two prerequisites I can see. One, the current trading system based on cash transaction must be eradicated. So there must be a cashless world. The world must become a cashless world. Everything must be cashless. All the transactions must be cashless. So we are talking about possibly a digital currency where you don't necessarily hand out a cash, you make a payment, and a third party which will look into your credentials and the buyer's credentials will either say yay or nay for the transaction. That's one prerequisite. Second prerequisite is everyone must be in a database. Everyone must be in a database, in a system where your standing with the Antichrist will be very clearly indicated. Either you are a friend or foe of the Antichrist. Now, for these two things to take place, there must be a global infrastructure that will have the name of everyone, that will have all the details of everyone. Now, just pause there, and let's go back to know what happened in the lockdown, coronavirus pandemic lockdown. Before the coronavirus pandemic lockdown, we were already living in a world which was already integrated with internet. We were all carrying our cell phones and using internet, doing a lot of things on internet, but we still had a world economy which was largely based on cash transactions, although many countries and many businesses want to move into digital money, digital currency, and walk away from cash-based business. However, cash-based economy is still our economy globally. So that is where we were before the 2020. At the same time, before the 2020, although we have internet and cell phones and internet connection all over the world, we don't do everything on internet. We just do communication and business and whatever, but largely we live our lives outside of internet. Now in lockdown, something else happened. In the lockdown of the coronavirus crisis, the whole world was literally locked down, shut down. Governments were shut down, businesses were shut down. People were not allowed to walk out of their houses. People were not allowed to stick their neck out of their windows. We were literally locked down all over the world. But there was one thing which was not locked down nowhere in the world. That was the internet. Internet was not locked down. Businesses were locked down, shops were locked down, everything was locked down, but not the internet. Internet was left open. In fact, internet service providing companies and internet cable laying companies, they were all given green light by all governments all over the world to continue their operations, in fact, to even accelerate their operations to provide so that they can provide internet to everybody. And so that they can make sure internet works smoothly. And while that was happening, countries like China were talking about moving the internet connection to the next level, which they call the 5G. So what I'm trying to say is there was this global lockdown all over the world, but that lockdown excluded internet and internet related services. And also another interesting thing that took place. During the lockdown, all internet-based businesses were allowed to operate. People were allowed to continue working from their home over the internet. People were not allowed to visit one another, talk to one another, to see one another. People were not even allowed to visit their family members. In many cases, husbands and wives were separated. In many cases, family members were separated from one another. And they were forced to use internet alone to keep in touch. This was the case for literally hundreds and thousands of people all over the world. And millions of people were under total lockdown, and the only thing they could use was internet. So during the lockdown, people turned to use internet like never before. People learned to do internet shopping like never before. People who have never did online shopping learn how to do online shopping during the lockdown. Businesses who have never invested onto online business, they turn their attention to online business. Churches who have never done anything on internet, for the first time in lockdown, they started doing ministry on the internet. There was this boom on the internet. Churches, ministries, organizations, governments, schools, they were all flooding to use internet for their very basic activities. On top of that, individuals use internet like never before. People were carrying out their most intimate conversations with their loved ones over the internet. Internet became the most needed basic necessity for all the people of the world in this so-called pandemic lockdown, or shall I rather call it plandemic lockdown. Anyhow, while this was happening, the population of the world was learning one thing. We can carry on our lives as long as we have the internet. Internet is what we need more than anything else at this moment. And at that time, many of us Christians, we said, wow, thank God for the internet. At least through the internet, we can continue ministry work. We can continue communicating. It's true, that helped us. But let's just dig a little bit deeper and see what is behind this. During this lockdown pandemic, when we did everything over the internet, we learned as the global population, internet is all we need. And at the same time, internet learned everything about us. Internet collected incalculable amounts of data about each and every person on the internet. Organizations, companies like Google and Facebook and Twitter and many others collected incalculable amounts of data about every individual, every business, every click you made, every text message you sent, every voice message you sent, every email you sent, every website you visit, every search you made are stored in their massive storage drivers somewhere around the world. They collected all that data. Now I want to ask the question, who is in charge of all this data? Why do they collect these data? Every conversation you made on internet, it didn't go into trash somewhere. It is in a storage, in a hard drive, in a mega hard drive somewhere sitting for some purpose. Now, while this was all happening, we were also learning that we don't so much need the hard cash in our hands, because during the lockdown we learned to spend money on the online shopping, and you didn't have to go to shop. All you needed to do was type in your credit card details or use a bank account which allows you online shopping. And the whole global society was retrained in thinking and acting in a new way. Acting on the internet, living on the internet, and doing their most basic needs, most basic activities on the internet, even doing the entertainment on the internet, even doing the romancing on the internet, even getting married on the internet, even conducting church services on the internet. Everything was done on the internet. And at the same time, internet collected all these data about all our activities, all our choices and preferences and tastes and whatever else is. And we learned that what we need at the moment more than a car, more than cash in our hand, is an internet connection. And we also learned that digital currency is good enough. In fact, it's better than the cash currency, cash money. So now, just bear with me, try to understand what I'm trying to say. During the lockdown, I believe an operation took place. I call that operation Global Digital Takeover. I believe during the lockdown, the global digital takeover has taken place, and today, all over the world, all nations, all governments, all people are literally taken over by a digital governance, digital ruling elite, digital ruling group, whatever you call it, whoever they may be. But whoever is in control of internet, whoever is in control of all those storages where the data is collected, whoever is making the decisions about how that data can be used, they are the ones pulling the strings at the moment. They are the ones making the decisions. And so much so that now we moved from living a physical life to largely living a digital life. At the same time, we learned that digital currency is as powerful, in fact, even more powerful as the cash currency. Now, that brings me to my initial point which I was trying to make based on Revelation chapter 13 verses 16 and 17, in which we read where the beast will make everybody bear the mark on their hands or foreheads, and unless they bear the mark of the beast, they won't be able to buy or sell, they won't be able to conduct any transaction, they won't be able to do anything. Now, can you see, during the lockdown, while we were all busy with the lockdown paranoia, this takeover was busy taking place, the world was being set on a new stage, and now in the post-lockdown coronavirus crisis lockdown world, do you know what is one of the most hot topics in the business world? Cashless economy. Now we are moving towards a cashless digital currency based economy that will be implemented all over the world. This is not a science fiction discussion. This is a real discussion currently taking place in the courtroom, in the boardrooms of big corporations, big businesses, and in the planning departments of governments. When and how can they scrap away physical cash and implement a cashless society and use only digital money? Now, Once that happens, once a cashless economy is implemented, and once all the population is recorded, registered, cataloged on a database such as internet, then we have all that is required for the Revelation chapter 13 verses 16, 17 and verse 18. Can you see how close we are? We are literally on the threshold, around the corner from the arrival of Antichrist. But now, if we are so close for the arrival of the Antichrist, imagine how close we are for the rapture actually. We know that the rapture needs to take place before the arrival of the Antichrist. That means we are really just around the corner. Can you see what I see there? So during the lockdown, two major things happened. Number one, great numbers of people, like never before in the world history, they turned to internet and they use internet like never before. This gave the opportunity to the companies and organizations and the powers that rule the internet. It gave them the opportunity to catalog everything about the users of internet. Their names, surnames, ages, birth years, birthdays, everything they said, every message they sent, every click they made, every interest they showed. Every internet user has a catalog, has a profile on their name, under their name, in these service providers' hands. They collect this data. It's not a secret anymore. It's not a hidden secret. It's plainly known, open fact today. They collected all this data, and this data sits there in their hands about every individual, every business, every buyer and every seller. And furthermore, they did not only collect the data, they now sit on a position of rejecting or confirming every transaction you make on the internet. At the same time, they train the people of the world to think differently and to act differently. Basically, they taught us, you don't need cash to do business. All you need is a bank account that allows you to do online shopping. Now, once you have that, you don't need cash. Or you just carry on doing what you do. You get your salary into your bank account. From there, you spend it as you want. You don't need it. All you need is a banking card, a credit card, or a bank account, or a cell phone banking account, whatever it is. It is digital. Everything is digital. But all this convenience comes at the cost of two fundamental, priceless things that we hold on to. Your freedom and your privacy. These people, these organizations that control the internet, they have direct access to everything you have done, you have said, you have looked at. They have direct access to it. You have no more privacy anymore. Your privacy is long gone already. The second thing is they have the authority, they have the power to manipulate you, whether you like it or not. For example, if you put something on Facebook and the people who control Facebook don't like it, they will put it down and you cannot resist that. Your freedom is gone. You cannot say what you want to say. You can only say what they allow you to say on the internet. You cannot watch what you want to watch. You can only watch what they allow you to watch. Whatever they don't like, they will pull out of the internet. You see, on the one hand, they take your freedom. On the other hand, they take away your privacy. You have no more privacy. At the same time, they offer you the world. You can do everything from the comfort of your home. In fact, from the comfort of your bed under your blanket, you can just connect the whole world. But everything is subject to the authorities that are controlling the internet. Now imagine what will happen one day when the Antichrist comes and he takes authority of the internet into his hands. He becomes the sole ruler of the internet as well as the world. And that is exactly how the Antichrist is going to control the world. He will, before the arrival of the Antichrist, we are busy seeing how the people, organizations, governments are more and more giving their powers to internet. And internet is ruling every aspect of the people's lives. It is even People are even busy talking about scrapping away cash-based economy, cash-based market system, and moving into digital currency, which is subject to internet. And then once that happens, Antichrist, when he comes, all he needs to do is to take authority of internet into his hands and either confirm or reject everything you say, every action you make, every transaction you make. You see, we are really, really close. The world is on a course, on a high-speed train to the arrival of the Antichrist. But if we are so close to the arrival of the Antichrist, if the world is really being prepared for Antichrist, that means the rapture is even closer. That means the arrival of Jesus Christ to fetch his body from this world is even closer. And with that note, I want to say goodbye to you. I want to leave this thought with you. On the one hand, it is really chilling. It is really shocking to see all these developments taking place right in front of our eyes. But on the other hand, it is exciting because we are living in times of Bible prophecy. It is unfolding right in front of our eyes, just as the Bible predicted it. And we know God is still in control, and God is going to send Jesus Christ, his Son, to fetch his bride from this world before Antichrist comes and commits the unspeakable atrocities against humanity. God bless you, and keep your eyes on Jesus. Until I see you again, goodbye. We are a non-profit, independent, and non-denominational Christian ministry organization. Please consider supporting this ministry with your donations.